break it down. Give me 5 people you're ready to fight right now.
Timothy Bradley, Paul,
Yeah.
Floyd Mayweather, Devin Alexander, and whoever the fan wants.
Yeah. Listen, I told you give them something visual. So you in the head and made your own YouTube-based TV show. It's an array of IPAs and fighters on the road. Got a question? Put them in your comment section right below. Barbershop talk while you're sitting in your living room. Pacquiao, Mayweather, and we can't forget the brews. Coming to you live with the scoops like a ladle. Allow me to introduce the boxing round table.
Okay, we don't have a problem with it. But what we saying is make the fight happen, because he'll bust his ass. We don't care about money. We don't care about a name. We don't care about technicalities. We just trying to say that whoever is the best or whoever is the biggest challenge, via whatever circumstances you set, via toughest challenge because he's big, toughest challenge because he got knockout power, he's a challenge because he makes the most money, he's the most skilled. We don't care. We saying put him in the ring with one time, and we telling you that one time don't knock him out.
Yeah. And see, what's funny
That's
is
all we saying.
what I don't get, and for the love of my life, dog, I can't understand how niggas who are consumers are worried about the profit of the corporation. Like, I don't give a fuck how much money Apple makes off an iPhone when I buy one. If I'm about one, I'm about one. It's not gonna be because I think that them niggas do good business. Cause the only business they got with me is making a good product. So however much they profit or don't profit, or how they share their shit, their wealth, or whatever they do after that, don't matter. The only thing that matters for me is getting a good product. So I don't understand how, as boxing fans, niggas is counting these boxers' pockets like that matters to you as the consumer. Cause all you need is a fucking good product. And if you ain't getting a good product, that means somebody ain't doing their job as far as you being a consumer. I don't get that shit, dog. I don't get how these niggas are siding with the side of the fucking the boxing people, dog. I don't get that shit. Making excuses for why fights shouldn't happen, like they getting a cut of the money or something. I don't get that.
Well, it's just basic principles, man. Everybody don't come from the same principles. Everybody don't come from the same understanding. And you got to speak and create a universal language. And the universal language is red corner versus blue corner. That's one thing you can never deny. All right? Because it's a fight / boxing. And all things are settled in a square circle in a fair contest. You know what I mean? It's not like somebody's coming in there with an AK, a knife. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's fair. It's possible. So I don't understand why you would be worried about things that have nothing to do with you, unless you're looking for an out. And the out is an excuse. And a list of excuses could be whatever's not the favorable outcome. You know, hey, his toe was hurt. He don't bring enough money. He ain't done nothing yet. You know, it's just simple stuff like that, man.
Yeah. You're right. Looking for an out. That's the craziest shit, man. That as a fan, you know, I mean, I don't understand how we even begin to make excuses for why any good fight or competitive fight shouldn't happen. I mean, I just don't for the love of me understand that shit, dog. You know, I was looking at a Boxing Wave video, and he was saying how he don't see how people say that Al Heyman is bad for boxing. Now, if you go buy a car and a motherfucking salesman sell you a lemon, you ain't gonna be like, damn, man, I got this fucked up car, but that nigga was just doing his job, so I'm just stuck with this shit. You know what I'm saying? No, you try and take that shit back, call a Better Business Bureau, whatever the fuck you gotta do. Because in your own heart as a consumer, you feel like you shouldn't be sold no fucking lemon. So why should it be different in boxing? I'm paying for Showtime, HBO, whatever the case may be. I don't want to be. I don't want to. You know, shit, man. That's it, man. I just don't get that shit, dog.
That's true. I agree.
Yeah.
I know everybody just focused on being a fan, focused on enjoying boxing instead of worrying about outside stuff. You know, so
Yeah,
I understand.
I don't, man. I just don't. I mean, I get it from the perspective of Al Heyman, but I'm the consumer, so I don't want bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you and this can go for anything, dog. If you sell fucking shoes or donuts or motherfucking soda, you got a good line of, you know, top of the line soda, and then you got some bullshit over here, and you selling the bullshit for top dollar. For your company, that's good, but for the people that's buying it, it's not. I don't understand how niggas could be on that side of the fence. Like, well, yeah, Al Heyman giving us shitty fights, but it's good for the fighters. If you ain't the fighter, it ain't good for nobody else. Only that fighter. That's the only nigga it's good for. Like, I don't get that shit, dog. Oh man, it boggles my mind, man. Like I say, dog, I don't think that nobody has ever went to no restaurant or went to go buy a bag of weed. Like, man, this weed was some shitty ass weed, but I'm glad that nigga made that $25 off of me. You know what I'm saying? I don't get that shit, dog.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man. You ready to get these boys this education, man? I hate to ask you if you are recording, but we always get that.
Let's dive into it, man. Let's dive into it.
Let's dive into it. Hey, man, question. You know, we can go back and forth, man. We just gonna break down, and I want to get an understanding from you on why do you feel that Keith Thurman is the best welterweight currently right now, from your perspective?
All right. First off, definitely he exhibits every aspect of a fighter that I believe that a fighter should be. You know, I don't necessarily contemplate, you know, like wins and losses per se, like a lot of people do. But when I see him in the ring, he does what I believe essentially a fighter should do. He's trying to destroy his opponent. He's boxing for the knockout. He's not just a crude slugger. He shows speed. He shows defense. He's shown the ability to absorb punches or to absorb a shot. He's shown the ability to not get hit. He's shown the ability to knock motherfuckers out, to box motherfuckers, to outpoint their ass. And he don't talk no bullshit about, you know, and this, I ain't even get into the outside of the ring stuff yet, but just inside of the ring, he's shown me everything that I want to see in a fighter.
I agree with that. I like that. My take on it is conducts himself like a boxer the way we envision a boxer shooting. Everything that we say we want as boxing fans, for somebody being able to possess all the physical abilities like speed, you know, ring generalship, foot movement, chin, heart, endurance, knockout power, the ability to finish down the stretch, body punching, head punching, hooks, jab. He bring out everything as a fighter. Mm-hmm. Now, my question to you is, what would you grade? Because we've done several videos. I know most people have been following us doing the grading of fighters. What would you grade Keith Thurman?
Oh, I would definitely give him an A based on my eye test. Now, as far as his accomplishments in the ring, is a different story. And see, that's why we give it a grade based on our eye test. because I know that he hasn't accomplished much in the ring. So for the eye test, I mean, like I say, it's definitely an A. Like I said, he's shown me good defense, and I ain't talking about holding the nigga because he get close. He's shown me good offense. I've seen hand speed from him. I've seen combination punches. I've seen good jab and outboxing. I've seen him box on the inside. I've seen him hit with to throw punches to score, and I've seen him laying punches to knock motherfuckers out, to concuss people. And I've seen him willing to engage in the ring, which is so important to me now based on the way that some of these fighters are fighting nowadays. He's willing to engage in the ring. Like, he's not fighting just not to lose. He's fighting to win. And I don't think that he's afraid of losing, which makes him even scarier to me for those fighters who are afraid to lose.
Okay. Now, to me, I feel like far as skill level and as a fighter, I think he's an A-level fighter. The accomplishments and the accolades, man, those are all good, but those are all trinkets. Because I pose this question to you, Rollo, or anybody else that's listening or want to take part in this. And I asked this question to others, but you didn't get to get it. If we was to strip all the sanctioning bodies, rankings, their belts, store it all in the trash. And I'm using that because we all agree that as boxing fans, the sanctioning bodies and the way they do the ranking system is corrupt. Okay? When you have corruption in the system, you can't really say that it's 100% legit. But what is 100% legit is the results of two fighters getting in there and fight each other, regardless of the sanctioning body influence on rank, title holdings, or positioning, or even a pound-for-pound list. So, as a boxing fan, Rollo, and as a knowledgeable boxing fan, anybody else that want to take this question, how do you determine who is the best fighter, or who is the best fighter if they hadn't fought each other, but you take away all the accomplishments? Now, I'm not trying to take away the accomplishments of any fighter because Keith Thurman hasn't accomplished anything. I'm just saying this is a scenario because we all agree that it's corrupt and there's politics behind it. So you as a person, using your boxing knowledge, not using the sanctioning bodies, the sanctioning bodies is a group of guys that are giving their opinion on where boxer A should be, boxer B should be. So as the YouTube boxing community, if there was no sanctioning body, how would you rank Keith Thurman and his peers based on what criteria?
Right. Okay, I got you. So basically, what you're asking me is, if you put Keith Thurman in the blue corner and you put fighter X in the red corner, what fighter would I put in the red corner and bet on that fighter over Keith Thurman at 147 pounds? Now, when I look at the landscape, I think there's only a handful of guys who I think could even make a fight competitive with Keith Thurman. And oddly enough, none of those guys are probably in the top pound for pound. I think that Keith Thurman will make easy work of Pacquiao. I think he make easy work of Bradley. To be honest, the only guy I think would give him trouble is Kell Brook. Everybody else at 147 pounds, I'm betting the house on Keith Thurman versus all of those guys except for Kell Brook. And I think he beat Kell Brook, but I'm less sure about him beating Kell Brook than I am about him beating any other fighter at 147 pounds. And yes, that includes everybody's favorite fighter.
Okay. So let's start with some of the peers that he got in his division. Just give me a breakdown on how you see it. Because a lot of people want to know why, using your boxing knowledge and your boxing IQ, because maybe you can shed some light on his positioning and why you think so. Now, starting with Pacquiao, what do you see in Pacquiao that Keith Thurman can exploit, or vice versa?
First of all, Pacquiao is he's a good fighter. I hold no qualms with Pacquiao, and what I've noticed with Pacquiao is he has a problem with fighters with good timing, which is why Marquez always gave him problems, especially being the good counterpuncher that Marquez is. Marquez is the type of guy who feeds off the counterpunching. I mean, him being a counterpunching feeds off a guy who likes to throw a volume of punches, which is Pacquiao. But see, the thing with Pacquiao is, I think that Keith Thurman can come close enough in hand speed where it won't be a difference. I'm not gonna say that he has faster hands than Pacquiao, but I definitely can't say that Pacquiao has faster hands than him. He has the athletic ability to not get hit with those shots that, let's say, a Marquez will get hit with, because he has the athletic ability similar to Tim Bradley. Tim Bradley was able to avoid a lot of shots, and I think that Thurman can do the same thing. But what Thurman can do that Bradley couldn't is hit Pacquiao with some shots that'll make Pacquiao change his mind about jumping in and throwing recklessly. I think that would be a big determining factor on how Pacquiao fights and how that fight is ultimately determined. Once Pacquiao gets touched, I don't think there's no question on punching power, who has the better punching power between Pacquiao and Thurman, because I don't think that Pacquiao has knocked out any guy that I don't believe that Thurman could have knocked out. Couldn't have knocked out, I mean. So I would give Thurman the edge in punching power. I would give Thurman the edge in IQ, ring IQ overall. I think that he has the ability to give Pacquiao some angles and some body shots that he just wouldn't be able to deal with. If Marquez can do it with his slow feet and slow hands, I don't think that Keith Thurman will have any trouble with it. What do you think? How do you see that fight playing out?
I'll take, you broke that one down. I'll take the next guy in line. I'll take Timothy Bradley. We can just go back and forth, with the top 10, top 6 guys is worth discussing in the ring with Keith Thurman. I see Timothy Bradley versus Keith Thurman being a knockout. And not just because Keith Thurman's a knockout artist, it's just because Bradley is very, very emotional as a fighter. And Bradley has good speed, but I think Keith Thurman has just as equally good speed. I think both of them have foot movement, but I believe that Bradley, when you throw volume, he starts to become sloppy. When you start getting him going back on the back foot, yeah, he got good foot speed, but he doesn't fight well going backwards. He's not known for countering you with a check hook or hitting you with the uppercut or going back and knocking somebody out. He's always good going side to side and even forward. But when you get Bradley going backwards, I think that's when he has his most trouble. And I think once you hit Bradley or embarrass Bradley, he tends to get into firefights. And I think Keith Thurman could outbox Timothy Bradley from the jump and hit him with some big stuff that can cause him to abandon his corner and trainer and any logic whatsoever to prove a point. And if he wants to put himself in a position where he get hit, like Pacquiao hit him in the second fight, or like Ruslan hit him in their fight, or like Kendall Holt hit him in their fight, I think he's going to leave on a stretcher. Because Keith Thurman is very, very poised and very, very mature for his age as a boxer. And he makes adjustments. He hits the body very well, which Bradley always comes in shape. So I don't know how that will affect him. And his body's always in a good shape for a spectator point of view, you know, the way it looks.
Mm-hmm.
But I would definitely like to see how Keith Thurman touch him to the body and ultimately to the head. So I see Bradley coming in with something wild, trying to get his lick back, and I see Keith Thurman hit him with one of those hooks, one of those counter shots, and putting Bradley down and getting him out of there.
Okay. I see that too, because like you said, one of the main things with Bradley is he's a guy who likes to get back. And he was able to bully guys who were bullyable, like Devin Alexander, but he couldn't use that tactic with Keith Thurman, you know. And if Ruslan Provodnikov gave the motherfucker all that hell, yeah. So I'm gonna go to Marquez, man. I think that him and Marquez, I think that would be one of Keith Thurman's easiest fights. Even though I got much respect for Marquez, and I think Marquez is the best counterpuncher in boxing. I think that Keith Thurman's IQ and the way that we've seen Marquez get thoroughly outboxed by an African American fighter, I think that Keith Thurman can easily duplicate that. But the difference between the guy who outboxed Marquez before and this guy can hurt Marquez seriously. You know, can put Marquez, and Marquez, as far as I remember, has never been knocked out. But I think he'd get knocked out in this fight because we know he's been on the canvas many a times. And I think that this time he might get put on the canvas and he ain't getting up.
I think Marquez, I agree with that. I think Marquez is a little too slow, a little too small. I don't think he have any answers for Keith Thurman. I don't think he have any. And I think that would be the easiest fight, or definitely one of the easiest fights that Keith Thurman would have.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. You got your boy Amir Khan.
Oh, that's a good one.
Breaking down Amir Khan, I think Amir Khan will suffer the same scenario that Tim Bradley. With the same thing, he likes to get his lick back, and he likes to get in firefights. And if Danny Garcia or Mike Don, who's not as fast as Keith Thurman, but Keith Thurman definitely hits harder than, I'm quite sure that he'll find himself taken out on a stretcher too. But the only thing I like about Khan right now is I definitely like Khan's length, and I would definitely like to see how Keith Thurman can get around his length.
Yeah.
And with the new hit and hold method that Amir Khan got, he know how to tie up. But I've never seen Keith Thurman really get tied up a lot either. He's real good for keeping you at a mid-range and boxing you till he gets his knockout.
Yeah.
I see Amir Khan going in for one of those tie-ups, and I see him getting hit with something big, trying to grab, trying to reach out, because Amir Khan has some pretty long arms. I can see him trying to do a 1, 2, 3, and then trying to reach his arms out and grab Keith Thurman, and I can see Keith Thurman catching him with something big.
Uh-huh.
Regardless of what style he come in. If he come in with the new style, I can see him getting caught with something big trying to hold or on the inside. Or if he come in with the Manny Pacquiao, I want to just hit you with combinations and use angle style, I think he'll just get hit and get caught in a firefight with Keith Thurman.
Yeah.
Either to the head or the body.
Because in that Collazo fight, I seen him reach out for holds and like completely miss like a defender or cornerback trying to get an interception, and like he turned his head too late, or the ball was just out of reach. And I've seen him do that quite a few times in that fight. And Collazo has never been a highly skilled guy, and I think that Thurman could easily exploit a reach and miss, much easier than a Collazo could. He has much quicker hands and quicker feet than Collazo has ever dreamed of having. But yeah, I think that that would be an interesting fight though. I think that would be one of the tougher, more interesting fights though for him to have. What about
I agree.
What about
I agree.
Guerrero? I think that Guerrero. Man, the only way I see this fight, we've seen Guerrero easily get outboxed by a guy with virtually no punching power. I think that we see the same type of fight, but he's gonna lead with what boxing talk would say, a pumpkin head. Guerrero has no defense. He has no hand speed. He has no foot speed. He has no real punching power. We've seen Andre Berto get put on the deck many a times. He couldn't do that. I mean, he swelled up his eyes, but swelling up somebody's eyes don't really mean, you know what I'm saying? Like, shit, you can get stung by a bee and your fucking eyes swell up the same way. You know what I'm saying? But the thing is, I haven't really seen him put anybody on the deck. I haven't even seen a fight where Guerrero hit somebody and had him hurt. So I am not a believer in him having any punching power. I don't know what attribute that Robert Guerrero has that even makes him a good fighter at all. So I think that would be one of Keith Thurman's easiest fights. I think that he has shown the propensity to have a good chin, and he's definitely going to need it in this fight if it was to ever happen. Because Keith Thurman is going to hit him, and hit him a lot, and hit him hard. And I just don't see anything that he could do to counter that. I mean, he doesn't have speed. He doesn't have good defense. I mean, I don't know anything that Guerrero does good. So I don't see, barring some miracle, that he would even have a shot in this fight to even make it interesting to watch.
I agree with that. I think it'd be easier than the Marquez fight.
Yeah.
When you incorporate Guerrero's skills in there, I think it'd definitely be exactly what you said to the T. I agree with that. I think that Guerrero already is fearful of Keith Thurman, and whether it's because of monetary compensation or because of popularity, he's still conceding to being fearful of the guy. And the circumstances is not an excuse. You're still reluctant to get into the ring with the guy and fight.
Yeah.
And that means you pretty much concede to the fact that you may not come out victorious, because if it's an easy win, then it's easy money. You will always get more money fighting more than less. Mm-hmm. So you could have Keith Thurman and then fought Kama guy because it's easy. Barring that you don't have injuries, easy. It's easy money. Pick up a check, beat him up, move on to the next person. But obviously, he's too dangerous, and you concede to that. So psychologically, he's already conceded to a loss to Keith Thurman. So I definitely know that would be an easier fight than Marquez. Now,
right. So now, especially being on the fact that we're talking about dudes obviously avoiding the fight. So you know who he's going to now, right? Your boy Marcos Maidana. How you see that fight playing out?
Marcos Maidana, same thing. I open up with saying he conceded to fear or some type of problem that he sees that he can't exploit at all, because he's turned down the fight twice. And like I said, the normal excuses, playing manager, and like you say, count somebody's pocket, that's not an excuse when you already are around the same size. They've got the weight classes to make it fair as possible. Okay? So it's not like the guy is eight weight classes above you. The guy's in your division and he's in your direct line of sight, and you turn down the fight. So he's already conceded fear too, and I believe that he's it'll look like the Marquez fight. I said, except I think Maidana would be, I think Guerrero will be the first easiest, and Maidana will be the second easiest, and Marquez will be the third easiest. The difference between Marquez and Maidana is, I don't think Maidana has the IQ of Marquez. I think that he will get in there and try to tough it out, do something that he just can't tough out this time. I think that he's going to get his brains bashed in. I think this is one of them knockout of the year type fights. I think you may see Maidana go down extremely hard. I think you could see mouthpiece fly because he's going to be there to be hit. He's willing to get hit. Mm-hmm. But I don't think he knows that he's not getting hit by a motorcycle this time. He's going to get hit by a train. But by the time he realizes that, he's going to be caught out on a stretcher. And I think it's going to be, the damage is already going to be done. And he may retire. I can see Maidana being one of the guys that retired after he fights Keith Thurman.
Ooh, okay, yeah, I can see that. I definitely agree with that easiest to hardest tree, especially with that trio. I think that Maidana will make that fight a little more exciting. It might be good for a couple rounds. Much better fight than it would be with, like you said, with Marquez and Guerrero. Marquez will make it exciting. I don't think that he'll be effective, but he'll make it at least interesting to watch. But yeah, I agree. I don't think that it's anything in Maidana, because we've seen Maidana hurt. We've seen him put on the ground by punchers, and I don't think that either of the guys that have put Maidana on the deck or have hurt Maidana can punch the way that Keith Thurman can punch. So whether he necessarily puts Maidana on the deck, I believe that he'll be able to hit Maidana and make Maidana change his mind about coming in reckless, But Devin Alexander, man, I think this would be one of the tougher fights. Devin is not a tough guy to me, and I don't mean like his chin. I believe he has a good chin and everything, but his mental makeup is not tough to me. And I think that in order for a fighter like a Devin Alexander, who doesn't have a lot of grit in his boxing style, he has to at least be tough mentally. And I think that him lacking that will ultimately make him a victim as well. Because he's not going to have the way Maidana or a Soto Karass, the ability to just flat out outbox those guys from the outside the way that he was able to do, with those two guys that I just mentioned. He won't have that advantage. So I don't see him having a second gear or a plan B that he can do, because he's not tough enough to go in and beat up somebody. You know what I'm saying? If he can outbox somebody, he can do that pretty good, and he cool. But if he can't outbox him, I've never seen him have a plan B to do something different. And the one chance he had it, which was on the biggest stage of his career, was against Tim Bradley. He folded. He folded like a sheet of paper. So I see Thurman being able to make him fold the same way that Bradley was able to make him fold. I just don't see it no other way, because I just don't see Devin Alexander being able to outbox him with that style that he has and his lack of mental toughness.
Now, for me, this is a very, very key fight for Keith Thurman in his career. And it's not because of Devin Alexander. I don't think it's Devin Alexander's skills or Keith Thurman's skills that will be on display that night. This is what gives me goosebumps about this fight, and this will take Keith Thurman to a new level. Unlike the other guys who I believe that he'll pretty much outspeed, knock out physically, this will be a mental challenge for Keith Thurman, because I believe this is due to Devin Alexander's skill set and due to his tendencies in the ring. I believe they will clash heads at some point. I believe that it'll be an ugly fight. I think that Devin Alexander is going to realize at the beginning of the fight or early in the fight that he cannot fuck with Keith Thurman physically. But Devin Alexander is crafty enough not to keep coming forward to get knocked out, like previous fighters that we named, like a Maidana. But he's crafty enough to continuously hold, but he holds more effective or better than Amir Khan. He's not going to lunge out to hold. He's quick enough to move in and out and hold you and stall and turn you. So I see this being Keith Thurman's greatest in-the-ring test as far as dirty tactics, as far as being uncomfortable, seeing how he deals with a guy that can hold good, that is a southpaw, that can clash your head, that will butt heads with you. He got enough speed to kind of get off a couple of punches and then hold you, get off a couple of punches and then just run, headbutt you and run back out, headbutt you and then grab you. You know, Devin Alexander got a lot of different tempos to his game. And I think the key to this is not that Devin Alexander is going to get knocked out, because I don't think Keith Thurman could knock Devin Alexander out, because Devin is crappy enough not to get knocked out. And at some point in the fight, Devin starts to fight not to get knocked out. I think the way he would knock Devin Alexander out and the way he's going to make Devin uncomfortable is not with speed, nor power, nor clinching. It's being mentally tough and breaking Devin Alexander down to the body. I think that is going to be the key. Making Devin Alexander have a tough fight, but taking it downstairs to the body.
Okay, I can see that. Yeah, Devin definitely to me would be one of his tougher fights. To be honest, I really only see one dude being tougher than Devin out of the whole welterweight landscape, you know. Actually, and that takes me to the next guy, man. He's he's on the shelf right now, but he's definitely a fighter that I'm on the bandwagon with, and that's Kell Brook. I like the way Kell fights, man. He uses his height, he uses his length. He's sharp and accurate with his punches. He doesn't waste energy or movement. You know, he doesn't move unnecessarily. He doesn't do anything unnecessary to me. He definitely goes in and tries to destroy. It looks like he can box. You know, it looks like he has pretty good power. This is the only guy that I'm not totally confident that Keith Thurman would beat. The only guy. But in that fight, man, the only thing I can say, man, is how both of those guys take each other punches. I think that might be one of the most determining factors, because they're both going to get hit. They're both going to go to the body. It's going to be who can withstand, because I don't think that either guy has any major advantages as far as attributes go. You know, no speed, no height, no length, nothing significant where I can say that this is going to be a factor. The biggest factor, like I said, that I see is one's ability to take the other one's punch. Because these aren't two guys who fight not to lose. It won't be one of those fights where both guys, you know, are trying just not to make a mistake. I think that these guys are going to mix it up some. You know, they're going to box a lot, brawl a little. I think it'll be an exciting fight, man. I'm just not sure about. I want to say that I think that Keith has the ability to pull it out. But honestly, man, it ain't nothing that I see in Kell Brook that makes me think that Keith can just beat him the same way I believe that he can beat all those other guys.
I think this would be another tough fight, not because of, physicality, but because of, I think this could be the welterweight division super fight. I think he is his rival. at De La Hoya. Thomas Hearn and Leonard Pacquiao and Mayweather. I believe that in his grad group or his class, Kell Brook would be his big guy.
Yeah.
Now, this will help me understand Keith Thurman better as well too, because it's other intangibles that go into this fight besides just, his power, his speed. I'm not worried about that part. Because Keith Thurman's young, he's hungry. Kell Brook is young, he's hungry. Same thing like Devin Alexander. It's the toughness of the fight and the circumstances in the fight that I want to see Keith Thurman overcome, not necessarily the physicality of the opponent in the fight.
Right.
So, Kell Brook has an ability to not be knocked out, still effectively box. And if you do that as the champion in the UK, I want to see how Keith Thurman deals with that challenge on going overseas, fighting a tough guy, and then trying to lift his strap off of him. And I mean beat the champion, not just have a good fight with the champion, but strip the champion of his belt definitively. Not just, it was okay, we can see a rematch. And I don't mind if it goes, if it's a very, very good back and forth match. But if Keith Thurman can go to the UK and stretch Kell Brook out, because Kell Brook don't been wobbled. He got wobbled by Sanchenko.
Yeah. And
if he can do that, that'll let me know what level he on. It'll take him to a new level. Just like the toughness and the circumstance of the Devin Alexander fight, I believe, will take him to a new level. Going overseas fighting Kell Brook on his home turf will take him to a new level psychologically.
And to be honest, man, if he was to go and do that and pull that off, that accomplishment would be more than anybody else, to me, has accomplished in the welterweight division recently, in recent times. Yeah, that's a good fight, man. I definitely would love to see that fight, man. Oh, man. That one got me salivating. That is the one fight that I really would love to fucking see, man. I guess the last one on the fucking welterweight list is, your boy, everybody's favorite fighter and shit. I mean, you can break it down, man, because, I don't like to talk about the motherfucker.
Well, I see it being, like I said before, if you take the first 2 rounds of Shane Mosley and the first 4 fights of Zab Judah, that gives you 6 rounds. Multiply that times 2. That's what I see. I see him stunning Mayweather and maybe getting a flash knockdown in the fight. I think Thurman has speed, counter-punching ability, and the wisdom and the know-how to disassemble Floyd Mayweather. And he's also stated that. Now, I know it's easier said than done, but I've never heard anybody break it down the way he breaks it down. Before, I would hear people say they got the blueprint, they say it's pressure. I don't believe that's the way to deal. But the way Keith Thurman breaks it down to me sounds like the way to actually beat Mayweather with semi-boxing, knowing when and why he uses the shoulder roll. Because I don't think nobody can unlock that shoulder roll technique. The key factor here is Dan Birmingham to me. Dan Birmingham is the same guy that came up with the plan to beat Trinidad and Shane Mosley twice. So Dan Birmingham is a very, very slept-on trainer, and his game plan and what he comes up with is going to be instrumental versus Floyd. I don't see Keith Thurman fading. I don't see him coming in there just to survive and get a paycheck. I think he's going to come in there to fight. And if Keith Thurman understands when and why Floyd Mayweather used the shoulder roll, I can see Mayweather going in full-blown retreat mode, but I don't see Keith Thurman chasing him, getting jabbed and counterpunched. I see Keith Thurman doing enough to chase him down, but staying off him enough to let it be seen publicly that it's clearly Mayweather who doesn't want to engage, but not over engaging by chasing him around the ropes and then getting pop shotted, making it look like Mayweather just standing on the outside, giving him a boxing lesson. I see Keith Thurman saying, whoa, I'm not chasing you from this corner to that corner. I'm going to chase you a little bit, but I'm going to stop and wave you in to come fight me. That's what I see Keith Thurman doing, holding his hands up, doing a little posturing, and making it known that Mayweather is not the one willing to engage because of some problems that Thurman may have given him in the previous rounds. Maybe a flash knockdown, maybe a wobble, maybe hand speed, but it'd be clear that Mayweather would then have gotten over versus Keith Thurman. I think Keith Thurman is the one fighter who will make Mayweather look old.
I 100% agree. And see, the thing is, with Keith Thurman, and unlike all of these past opponents, he's not going to be there for that lead right hand, which is his favorite punch, his most significant punch. He's not going to be able to win those low action, low activity ass rounds that people usually give him based on the fact that the round was boring as fuck. He's going to throw shots with power. And whether they land or not, it won't even matter, because it's going to keep him on the defense in a way that he won't even be able to counter. See, Keith Thurman won't be able to be countered because he's not slow. He doesn't have slow hands or slow feet. He can give angles. He can jump out the fucking way, unlike any of the guys that he's fought previously. So it'll be like you said with Zab Judah, how Zab Judah was able to outbox him, but Zab Judah wasn't tough. He got beat up in the fight, which is not hard to do because a lot of people have beaten up Zab Judah. But the one thing we know ain't gonna happen is Keith Thurman getting beat up by that nigga in the ring. That's definitely not gonna happen. Like, that's some shit that you can bet the house on. Whether you think that Keith Thurman would lose that fight or not, Keith Thurman getting beat up is one thing you can bet the house on. He might lose the fight, but him getting beat up is, you can bet the house on that shit. So what it is will he be able to out-slick a guy who's not slow as fuck in the feet, slow as fuck in the hands, slow as fuck with his upper body movement? Will he be able to land those pot shots? You know, because it's not going to be like fighting Marquez, where he can stand back and throw a jab all day long. And Marquez just don't have the upper body movement to even slightly get out the way, or the foot speed to get close enough to land a shot when the opportunity presents itself. He's definitely not Robert Guerrero, who the fuck I still don't understand how he's ranked high and why he's considered a good fighter. He's not Marcos Maidana, who may have some good punching power, but a horrible way of delivering the shots. He throws his shots terribly to me. I think that he can be a lot more effective if he was able to straighten up some of his punches and possibly throw his punches with more intelligence. You know what I'm saying? Marcos Maidana, you can almost see him throw his punches before he even cock his hand back. Keith Thurman is not that guy. So he's not going to be there for those pot shots, these lead right hands. He's definitely not going to be able to counter Keith Thurman because he's a good counter puncher, but he's not a great counter puncher in my eyes. You know, I just don't see Keith Thurman losing a fight to a guy with that little bit of activity. And if he revs up the activity, then he's going to make himself susceptible to get knocked out. And he's not going to let himself get knocked out. I think that he'd lose all 12 rounds decisively before he gives himself a chance to get knocked out. Like, he wouldn't risk winning by risking getting knocked out. You know what I'm saying? If it took for him to knock somebody out to win, he'd just lose. He'd rather just lose than to get knocked out. So I see him not really giving himself a chance to win the fight, because I think that after the first round, when it's not that, the action might be low, but it won't be that punch where you like, oh yeah, Keith Thurman lost that round. It won't be that. It'll be, damn, that was a close round. Keith Thurman might have won that round. And you can, you know Flomos all over the world will be like, yeah, I think he got that round, but I ain't sure. Because they know damn well the judges are probably saying, nah, he ain't win that round. He ain't do shit. And it won't be necessarily because Keith Thurman did a whole lot, but it'll be because the other motherfucker didn't do shit. So once you get about to the third round, and it's like, okay, he ain't did shit yet. He ain't landed none of these little punk ass lead right hands, none of that shit. Then you're going to get to the point where Keith Thurman's activity, whether he's landing clean shots or not, will give him the rounds, because you know the other dude ain't going to win no rounds on no activity. He's not never going to win a round because he out-hustled the other motherfucker. You know what I'm saying? So once you get to that point, I think that he just going to coast it out and say, fuck it, I'm going to lose every round or the rest of these rounds, but I ain't finna get knocked out because this motherfucker hit hard. And he just going to probably lose the fight 9 rounds to 3, 10 rounds to 2, some shit like that. Because he's not going to mix it up with Keith Thurman. He's not going to do that. I just don't see him doing that because I know that if he ain't going to mix it up with Maidana, Marcos Maidana, you definitely know he ain't going to mix it up with a guy who probably hits harder, who throws better punches, faster punches, who's younger, more ferocious, and more accurate. You know what I'm saying? So, I see that being one of Keith Thurman's, probably his 4th or 5th easiest fight.
Well, one question, and we can move on to the final one, last but not least, with Sean Porter. Now, the Mayweather thing, playing the other side of the fence to see what your opinion is. Now, Shane Mosley came off a big-time knockout victory over the most feared man in boxing at the time, Antonio Margarito, who was exposed for having plasters in his hand. Shane Mosley was dangerous. Shane Mosley was a black athletic fighter that had punching power, and Mayweather weathered the storm. And once he weathered the storm, he started standing in the mouth of the lion, which was Shane Mosley. What evidence do you have, or what rebuttal do you have to that? Because Shane Mosley, in a sense, going into that fight is no different from Keith Thurman. He's just a puncher. He got a little hand speed. They say the same thing about Shane Mosley. And I can see that parallel being drawn. So how we know Mayweather won't take it up to another level? Just like he did with Judah, who put him on the canvas unofficially, but officially. How do we know he won't take it to a new level and walk this young guy Keith Thurman down and beat him up?
How do we know that? Well, when have we seen that from that guy outside of Zab Judah? Yeah, he did stand in there with Shane Mosley a little bit, but we all know that Shane Mosley, the guy who lost handedly to Vernon Forrest, handedly to Winky Wright, him being outboxed was no trick, no secret, no surprise to anyone. This was the same guy who had a draw with Sergio Mora, a guy who probably didn't win a single round in 24 rounds with Winky Wright. So him being outboxed wasn't a surprise at all. Shane Mosley can do damage to a guy if he can put his hands on you. But if he can't put his hands on you, I mean, yeah, Shane Mosley had good hand speed. He had good punching power. But Shane Mosley had no ring IQ to me. None whatsoever. Shane Mosley can fight. He can scrap. But he was never a good boxer to me. I mean, even at 135 pounds, we got to think the dude had 32 knockouts in 34 fights at lightweight. And all of that shit went right the fuck out the window once he got to welterweight. People don't realize that Shane Mosley has a losing record at welterweight. From the time he became a welterweight, he has a losing record at welterweight. So, he's never been considered a good boxer. I mean, it took him 12 rounds to beat Ricardo Mayorga. You know, it's just Shane Mosley, Keith Thurman. I mean, I can see how people could draw similarities to those two guys, but if you know boxing, you know that those two guys aren't anything alike. Not even close. Not even close.
Okay. I can see that Shane Mosley having a losing record at welterweight. Let's go over some of the names and make sure we got it accurate, because we want to make sure we give them the right information. We don't want nobody typing in loopholes and naming this person that we forgot, this, that, and third. So I just want to make sure we accurate on that.
Okay. So, I mean, matter of fact, let's just name all the people he beat at welterweight or above. He beat De La Hoya twice. He beat
at welterweight and above. You want to do welter? You want to do 154 too, or you want to just do 147?
Yeah. We'll do welterweight and above. He beat De La Hoya twice. He beat Raul Marquez. He beat Luis Collazo.
Okay.
He beat.
Remember, he beat my boy Vargas twice.
Oh yeah, Fernando Vargas twice.
He beat Margarito.
Antonio Margarito. Yep.
And then he beat Cano.
He beat Cano? Pablo Cano?
Yeah, Pablo. Yeah.
Okay, that must have been one of those fights that was after, you know, wasn't televised and shit. You could be right.
Yeah. And then,
okay.
And then he beat Willie Wise.
Was that at welterweight?
Yeah, I think that was his first fight at welterweight.
All right, let me see. You said that was his first fight at welterweight. I thought that I could have sworn that was at lightweight, but you might be right.
I think that was because I thought he jumped up on Willie Wise and won his first appearance at welterweight, jumping up 2 weight classes. Then he rolled into the De La Hoya, the 2 wins over De La Hoya, Margarito, Cano, Margarito, Vargas twice, and who else you say? Oh, Collazo, and who else?
Let me see. It doesn't say Willie Wise, Rafedo. I could have sworn. You know what? You could be right. I'm finna see if that information is on here. Damn, it don't tell if it was at welterweight or not on BoxRec. I could have sworn that fight was at lightweight, but you might be right, man.
No, you can. Are you on it, looking at it, making sure that it's accurate?
Yeah, I'm looking on BoxRec.
If you are, you can always click over there. It should be a book to the side, like a little book, an icon, and you can click that and see what weight the fight took place.
I did. It didn't say.
I just want to make sure we give him his full credit for, all his victories and stuff like that, and make sure we ain't.
Okay, I'm gonna tell you a guy I forgot was Shannon Taylor. Oh damn, Adrian Stone was welterweight too. Okay, all right, he got a few more wins at welterweight than I remember. He got, let me see, Adrian Stone, Shannon Taylor, Antonio Diaz. Shit. Raul Marquez, Oscar. Oh, David Estrada. Oh my God. Jose Luis Cruz.
See, and that's all. Okay. Using a combination of 154 and 147.
Right.
Because at 147, I don't know if his record is that good, but 147 and above, he pretty much he alright. You know, he's okay.
Yeah, he was almost even. He got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 losses, and he got about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 wins and 9 losses above welterweight.
That's not a good record.
Yeah.
That's not a good record. And you included 154 because he did do a good job at 154 because he got 1 win over De La Hoya. He got 2 wins over Vargas.
Yeah.
He got a win over Burger. So, you know, and then Canelo, when did he fight Canelo? He fought Canelo at 154?
Yeah.
You see, you know, so he does better at 154. And then we know he lost to Pacquiao and Mayweather at 147.
Yeah.
You know, and we know he lost to Forrest twice at 147.
Oh,
so,
yeah. And I think, but see, then he lost to Winky Wright twice at 54.
And he lost to Winky Wright twice at 154. And then he lost to Mondane here recently.
Yeah.
But so he got not such a stellar record to me.
Yeah.
If you say he's 14-9, not a good record.
I mean, yeah, he lost a lot of big fights. Like, you know, you got Canelo in there. I mean, I'm sorry, not Canelo. Cotto, he lost that fight. Both fights to Vernon Forrest. I mean, no real good wins in here. You know, outside of De La Hoya, he has no real good wins.
So since you saying going to welterweight and above, it's not like you don't think he was a formidable opponent like people were saying anyway.
Exactly. Shane Mosley did not hardly as much at 35, at 47 than he did at 35. When Shane Mosley got to 47, he became very average to me. Very average. You know? He, I mean, like I say, he got 2 wins over Fernando Vargas, 2 wins over De La Hoya, and that sums up, I mean, and Margarito, you know. So he got 5 good wins at the weight class, but a whole lot of good losses, you know. You got 2 losses to Vernon Forrest, you got 2 losses to Winky Wright, you got the loss to Canelo, the loss to Pacquiao, you know. So it's just, the losses definitely outweighed the wins at 147, you know, and above, what I say.
Yeah. So I understand it. It makes sense. It makes sense that to prove your position on how valuable or not valuable Shane Mosley was, you know, to make that parallel to him fighting Keith Thurman and what Mayweather may do, you know, against Keith Thurman like he did Shane Mosley.
Right. And then we got to remember, Shane Mosley resurrected his career when he beat Antonio Margarito, and people thought that he was going to get wiped out by Margarito. But that was before we knew about the hand wrap shit and all of that shit. And we knew what happened to Margarito. Margarito never had a significant win after that himself. So, you know.
So last but not least, and we got your boy Sean Porter.
Showtime.
How you see that fight turn out?
Showtime. I believe that Showtime is a decent fighter. I believe that he was a little overrated when he beat who I consider the weakest guy at welterweight, being Paulo Malignaggi. I don't believe that he's a bad fighter. I believe that he has some room to grow, but that reckless, wild, running in style, I think that shit is going to be easy to deal with, especially when he get in there with guys who can punch. You know, I think that when he fought Kell Brook did a lot of holding. And it wasn't because Kell Brook wanted to hold, but it was because he was fighting a motherfucker who was just so reckless, man. You know what I'm saying? I think he was more trying to protect his face from a head than he was just wanting to hold a guy. And he makes himself very susceptible to being held because he's so reckless. I think that Keith Thurman could apply the same strategy that Kell Brook applied. And I think that the only difference is he may be able to do a little bit more body punching and possibly hurt Sean Porter a little bit more. Make him a little bit less anxious or more reluctant to come in wild and reckless like he usually does.
I agree with that. I think the body punching will probably be a big difference in that fight. Now, those are pretty much top level opponents at welterweight. Now, a lot of people will go off resume or incorporate resume accolades in there. And the heavy criticism about Keith Thurman and him not fighting anybody. So what I want to do is I want to take a look at the resume and the fighters that he's fought and get your opinion on what level fighter you think they is, what grade you give them, and whether that was a significant fight or not, or did that fight tell you anything about Keith Thurman, or if that fight was even valuable or not. So we'll start with his latest opponent, which was Julio Diaz. Julio Diaz, I think his record was about 30, and he had like 8 losses and a draw at the time. So, what do you think that? Why do you think that Diaz fight, if it was significant, and how do you grade Diaz as a fighter?
Diaz was a good lightweight. He was a good fighter at that weight class. I think that when he moved up, he lost what made him successful at the lower weight classes, which was his punching power. I don't believe that he could punch with real welterweights, but he did show that he could hang in there with guys like Amir Khan, guys like Sean Porter, who he had 2 fights with, but somehow, some way, Keith Thurman made easy work of him. Now, I don't necessarily believe in the triangle theory, but if we're going to grade guys and use common or like opponents, then Keith Thurman is up a notch above Sean Porter and Amir Khan based on the common opponent that they have in Julio Diaz. So, not saying that he necessarily beat those other 2 guys, but rating them with Keith Thurman has to be rated above both of those guys based on that common opponent.
I gave his performance, I gave it an A-level performance, because you're supposed to destroy a guy that's naturally a lightweight. I do think he did it better than Sean Porter, and I do think he did it better than Khan, which were and are his peers. So it gives you a comparison victory. Like you said, it doesn't mean he'll beat him, but when you start looking at his resume, okay, and we're not going off skill, we're looking at his resume and who has he fought. We got to say if he's good enough to give Sean Porter problems, and it took 2 fights for them to come to an end conclusion, and he put Amir Khan on the canvas, but this guy wiped him out about 3 rounds, then you got to give him credibility for being a former world champion and the way he did it. So I think Diaz is a C-level fighter, but I think Keith Thurman has a A-level or had an A-level performance against a C-level fighter that was a former world champion. Right. So I think it was a good pick.
Right. Yeah. I agree. I would say he's about a C-level, and he did what you were supposed to do against a C-level fighter if you're an A-level fighter,
Yeah. Now, what you think about Soto Karass?
Jesus Soto Karass. Now, Jesus Soto Karass, I believe, is another, I would say, a C fighter. He hasn't beaten any great fighters, but he's never gotten wiped out by anybody where you said, oh man, this motherfucker ain't shit. You know what I mean? He's been in there with a lot of guys. He had some losses, but besides McDonough and Thurman, nobody's really just wiped him out. You know what I'm saying? To be honest,
I think Soto Karass is a C-level fighter, and I think Keith Thurman gave an A-level performance because it ended with the ultimate conclusion. Soto Karass is a tough guy. C level though. Never been a world champion. Never a welterweight or anything like that. Good fight. He also beat Berto, who was a former world champion, which put him in a position as a combat fighter of the year, which got him into the fight with Keith Thurman. So he did earn the right to fight Keith Thurman based on his performance that year, which was against Aiden and against Berto. And he came off 2 impressive victories, and he was trying to add Keith Thurman at third. But Keith Thurman did what he had to do against the Snow. And it could have ended like Berto. He could have knocked Keith Thurman out and exposed him as just a contender or a prospect. But Keith Thurman knocked the guy out, knocked him down, and then knocked him out brutally, separated himself in class between Soto Carras and the rest of the welterweight divisions. But I think that was a good victory, you know, and I think he had an A-level performance against a C-level fighter like he's supposed to.
Yeah, you know, like I say, man, Soto Carras, you know, he's been in there with A. Dean, Devin Alexander, Berto, Marcos Maidana, Gabriel Rosado, Mike Jones twice, Alfonso Gomez, Carson Jones, David Estrada. So, you know, he's been in there with quite a few guys. You know, he definitely has the experience, and he hasn't been knocked out much. Yeah, I mean, he's only been knocked out 3 times. One was against Maidana. One was against Keith Thurman, and I'm not sure who the other one was against. So, I mean, that's not...
He was stopped against Gabriel.
Gabriel Martinez. No? Yeah?
Yeah, Rosado. What's that name? Rosado?
Oh,
the one who always cut.
Yeah. Gabe Rosado. Gabe Rosado knocked him out.
Yeah, it was in 154. I remember that fight. They stopped it.
All right.
He was too small. He was too small.
Uh-huh. Yeah, especially talking about a guy who's fighting at middleweight now. We got Carlos Quintana, who it looks like...
Carlos Quintana.
Quintana was a good fighter, man. You know, we got DeAndre Lattimore. He's beaten. You know, he got knocked out by Andre Berto. He beat Jesse Feliciano. I don't know if you remember that guy. He beat Paul Williams. Chris Henry he beat. He lost he got knocked out by Miguel Cotto. He beat Joel Julio. A lot of people might remember that guy.
Yeah.
He was I would say a real solid C+ fighter. You know, just a good solid C fighter, or very, very, very weak B. But I would say he was a C fighter, and you know, Keith Thurman made a work of him. You know, he didn't go to decision with him. He put him out of his misery. You know, the way that you're supposed to do to him.
Yep. I agree with that. I think Carlos Quintana is a C-level fighter, but he's a world champion, a former world champion. And Keith Thurman knocked him out pretty early. You know, there was a C-level fighter that made a couple of little, you know, moves at 147, but he was in the era of beast, you know, with the Centron and the Margarito and the Mosley, the Cotto, the Pacquiao. Tough competition. Paul Williams, Berto, when everybody was hot, undefeated, and that wave of fighters were coming in, Quintana just was one of the guys that was a gatekeeper and contender at that time, probably even a B-level fighter at that particular time.
Yeah.
But when he fought Keith Thurman, he was on the comeback trail, trying to make his name at 154 in hopes to get a fight with Canelo Alvarez, but he was trying to do it on Keith Thurman's dime, and Keith Thurman stretched him out. Yeah. You know, I think that was an A performance against a C-level fighter, a former world champion as well, too.
Right. Then you got Juan Zavic. I mean, this guy, Jan Zavic, he only has 3 losses. He has 1 knockout loss, but that loss was like he retired on a stool. It wasn't even like a TKO. I believe he was injured in that fight against Berto. The guy doesn't lose much. I mean, he lost to Berto, he lost to Thurman, and some other dude from Poland. It was a 12-round split decision. So this is not a guy who loses a lot of fights. He doesn't get knocked out, and I mean, Keith Thurman pretty much outboxed him, a unanimous decision. You know,
Yep.
that just doesn't happen. I mean, the dude only got 3 L's, like I said. I mean, he lost a split decision. So, I mean, Zabic is a good fighter, man. I would almost say Zabic is a B. I mean, he doesn't have a lot of names on his resume, but he hasn't had a lot of opportunities either. You know, I mean, I didn't see Guerrero knocking down his door, or Paulo Malignaggi, or Mike Jones, or, you know, so a lot of guys didn't fight him, but Keith Thurman took it upon himself to fight him, and you know what I mean? And he was former IBF welterweight champion.
I think Zabic is a good fighter. I agree with what you said. I think he's a B-level fighter.
Yeah.
Keith Thurman, I think Zabic is a very, very good fighter. I think he's a B-level fighter, and I think it was a B-level performance by Thurman. I'm glad Zabic didn't cut so it wouldn't be a way out. It forced Keith Thurman to have to box, not just utilize or rely on his knockout power. It showed you he can make adjustments in the fight, and it showed you that he had the stamina and the heart to go 12 rounds. Because a lot of guys can't fight past 6 or 7 rounds if they knockout artists. Zabic, a former world champion as well, too. I think it was he's a B-level fighter, and I think it was a B-level performance. So I think it was a good win on his resume.
Yeah. I mean, that was one of those fights where Zabic, he hasn't lost to say he's a bad fighter, and he hasn't won to say he's a really good fighter. You know what I mean? So I give Keith a lot of credit for that win, because nobody's really beating him. You know, he hasn't had the opportunities. He's kind of in the same sense, like how Keith Thurman is. When people say, "Well, he ain't beat nobody," well, he ain't lost to a bunch of people either. You know what I'm saying? So, I would rate him a B until I see him lose to some lesser fighters. You know what I'm saying? I believe Keith Thurman is an A-level fighter, and he lost to an A-level fighter, and that's what's supposed to happen if you're a B-level fighter. I mean, you got Diego Chavez. You know, that was Keith's, probably his biggest win to date. And I like Diego Chavez. I think he's a really good fighter. He showed me a lot in that fight with Thurman. He made Thurman do something different. It wasn't an easy fight for Thurman at all. It obviously wasn't an easy fight for Diego Chavez. Chavez had moments in that fight, but Keith Thurman was able to show me some resilience, some poise, some tactical or strategical maneuvering in that fight that I hadn't seen up until that point. So I know that he can make adjustments in the fight. I know that he can fight in different styles. Keith showed me a lot in that fight, and Diego Chavez brought it out of him. You know, that was a really good fight to me.
I think Chavez is a B-level fighter. I think that Keith Thurman had an A-level performance against a young, prime, undefeated fighter for a number one contender spot at that. The same thing with Zabic. Zabic, when he fought Zabic, and like he fought Diego Chavez for number one contender spots. I don't know how he just missed the shot at the WBO title, but to this day he still should be number one, because to this day nobody's beat him to take that spot.
Yeah.
And in the same instant, back to Diego Chavez, he took his interim title, putting him in position to be a highly ranked number one contender, not in just one sanctioning body, but in his second, which was the WBA. So, as far as I'm concerned, he's probably the top contender for everybody's title at welterweight. You know, so beating Diego Chavez was a very, very good victory. Undefeated fighter in his prime, and a hard punching Argentine with power. He made adjustments in that, you know, and he went to the body, went to the head, just sat down on his punches, and got him out of there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man, that was a good win for him, man. I really like that fight. You know, nobody had heard of Diego Chavez. The only thing we knew that he had a lot of knockouts and he was undefeated, and nobody else wanted to fight this Argentine. So, you know, the Argentine guy's getting a lot of love lately. We got Carlos Abregu. He getting ready to fight on his upcoming card. So, you know, the Argentine guys have made some noise, and they've only really been knocked off by A-level guys. You know, Abregu has only lost to Tim Bradley. Maidana has a couple of losses, and you know, most of his losses came against A-level fighters. And Diego Chavez has one L and one DQ, but his one L came against an A-level fighter, man. So I'm looking forward to seeing some of these Argentine guys mix it up. I'm looking to see Chavez knock off some guys that'll make Keith Thurman's win look a little better. And I'm looking to see if all of these fighters in the welterweight division stop acting like some pussies and start fighting, you know, because you know, we hear a lot of people talk about who could beat Keith Thurman, who Keith Thurman couldn't beat. But what we do know is none of the guys he's been in the ring with has beat him. And the only thing we got to wait and see is which one of these guys going to have the balls enough to get in the ring and do what they say they can do, is beat Keith Thurman, you know? Because I'm tired of asking the question of, well, Keith Thurman ain't beat nobody. Who has he beat? My question to motherfuckers now is, who the fuck has beat Keith Thurman? Who the fuck has the balls to go in there and beat Keith Thurman? And if it ain't your favorite fighter, then shut the fuck up.
I agree with that. If it's not the guy who you think can beat him, and he's not stepping up to the plate, for whatever good excuses you could come up for your favorite fighter, then cool. If he's not fighting your fighter because he doesn't bring enough money to the table, then shut the fuck up, fall back, and be quiet. Okay? But us as Thurman fans, just like Floyd have his fans and Pacquiao have his fans, what we're saying is we want to see him fight everybody. We're not discriminating. We want to see him fight Pacquiao. We want to see him fight Mayweather. We want to see him fight Sean Porter. There ain't no challenge off limits because Keith Thurman's not too big to ever fight anybody. Mm-hmm. It's never going to get to a point where that kind of stuff matters to us. Only thing we want to see him do is continue to push himself. And once he don't push himself or he start doing some fraudulent stuff, then now we got to have another discussion.
Exactly.
And a lot of people pose the argument, when he get there, he's going to do the same thing. Bro,
well, if he
we'll
do,
have to just find out.
We'll have to find out when we get to that point. You know, and if he do, I already got my stance. I'm sticking to it. I'm not going to change how I feel about fighters because he decided that he wanted to be that way. Nah. You know what I'm saying? He going to fall in that same pocket with the rest of them bitch-ass niggas if he do that. Until he does that, I can't treat him like he did. You know what I'm saying? So.
Exactly. So, what you think, man? Why do you think people are afraid of Keith Thurman? Because it's not just the boxers, but it's the boxing fans. They're fearful that their favorite fighter might get beat up by this guy. What you think that's all about, and why you think that is?
See, man, because, look, man, I use this analogy, man, sometimes, but I say, if, motherfuckers get excited, like, oh, man, Dwight Howard dunked on Tony Parker, and you're like, yeah, cool. Or people get excited, Blake Griffin dunked on Jamal Crawford. It's cool. All right. But I'd be impressed when he dunked on Dwight Howard. You know what I'm saying? Or I'd be impressed with Dwight Howard when he dunked on Emeka Okafor or some shit like that. I'm not impressed with beating Maidana, because I've seen Maidana get beat worse than he got beat these last 2 fights. So beating Maidana is not impressive. I've seen Robert Guerrero come out of nowhere and get a fight, and all of a sudden, ooh, he got his legs back. But he fighting a guy that ain't did shit. And people always talk about what Keith Thurman did. What the fuck did Robert Guerrero do? Ever. Let alone at welterweight. So what I think it is I think that they know it's like that real deal coming. You know what I'm saying? It's almost like when somebody's saying like LeBron is the best basketball player against Joakim Noah, but they know it's a different story when the comparison is against Kevin Durant. You know what I'm saying? Then it's always a little shaky. You know what I'm saying? So these motherfuckers recognize talent. You know what I'm saying? Because they've been trying to figure it out, being a fan of this one guy for so long, that they obviously see it in this other guy. So he's a threat physically in the ring, but they can use the non-threat financially as the scapegoat and not fight him. Because like I always tell you, it ain't no difference between Marcos Maidana, Robert Guerrero, Victor Ortiz. None of these guys move the needle enough for you to say that they are qualified to fight, and Keith Thurman isn't. So that's just an excuse that people use when they scared that this guy literally has the ability to fuck my fighter up. So in order for my fighter not to get fucked up, let me stick to the script and say this is the reason that he shouldn't fight. But what's fucked up though is Keith Thurman gaining a lot of traction. I mean, I'm surprised at it myself. That I'm hearing, I was just looking at a female boxing fan today, and she was saying that was the fight that she really wanted to see, was Keith Thurman and her favorite fighter. I mean, I'm seeing it a lot. Even Jay Tenet, he like, man, shit, he ain't got nowhere else to go but Keith Thurman and Amir Khan. So it might happen, dog. It might happen. I mean, I still don't see. I mean, I take that back because there have been fights that we obviously thought was so obvious that it was no way that it could not happen, and it not happened. So with that dude, there ain't never no weaseling him into a corner, you know. He's the king of weasels, so he always figure out a way to get out of a fight, and the fans justify why he didn't fight the motherfucker. So I ain't gonna get my hopes up high though.
Makes sense, man. I mean, that's pretty much breaking down Keith Thurman in a nutshell, man. You know, you hear from him, you hear from people that are supporters of Keith Thurman. I mean, really ain't no excuses, man. It's really time to stop ducking and dodging and get a guy's respect and get a guy's just due. If you don't feel like your fighter should be fighting Keith Thurman, then shut the fuck up, fall back, and promote another fight.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, it ain't really nothing. It ain't really nothing to talk about. I mean, we say Keith Thurman can beat everybody at welterweight. If you disagree, put pressure on your fighter to fight him. I mean, if you don't disagree and it's nothing to you and it's absurd that we even say that, don't even rebuttal. I mean, I want to respond to somebody saying Rod Soccer can beat Keith Thurman. I mean, it's ridiculous. You know,
right. You wouldn't even go into no banter with that shit.
Yeah. So if the thought that Keith Thurman can't beat these guys is your side of the fence, then why even respond? Because like you said, they know the truth. And one more thing though, man. Last but not least, and this I'm gonna leave you be at this. I got a question. This whole fantasy matchup with hypothetically Canelo Alvarez and Keith Thurman, how you see that fight playing out?
Ooh, that's a good one. See, I don't think Canelo Alvarez is that good, man. I don't think that Keith would have that big a problem beating Alvarez. I mean, Lord gave Canelo problems simply doing nothing. And I think that when Canelo get hit in the face a few times, like Trout did, I think that, you'll see a different tune out of Canelo. I think it'll be a good fight. I think that Canelo may have, changed his tune a little bit and gotten a little grimier, a little more Mexican in him since that fight in September 2013. But he hasn't really fought a guy like, I thought Angulo would bring something out of him, but obviously we know the Angulo that we used to know is not the Angulo that we see now. So I still haven't seen anything significant in Canelo that makes me think that he'll be trouble yet. I'm interested to see what he does in his next fight and who he fights next, that being Canelo. And I'll be able to gauge him a little bit better because I still think Canelo is a B fighter. And I don't think that the size is that big of an advantage for Canelo. I think Keith Thurman could take him. I think that he could, stick and move on Canelo. I think he has the enough power in his punches to make Canelo respect him. I'm not sure that he knocked Canelo out because I've never seen Canelo hurt. I've never seen Canelo stunned or anything. So I think that Keith Thurman can make him respect him and keep him at the end of his punches and outbox him for 12 rounds. I don't know what you.
Yeah, I think Canelo is a C-level fighter, man. Never been impressed with him. I think he's just a heavy 147 pounder that just don't want to make the 147 pound limit. It's about 5'7", 5'8" at the most. Doesn't have brutal knockout power or even excellent knockout power. Got C-level power, C-level speed, D-level foot movement, D-level heart, meaning he's not a goat killer. He doesn't have a killer instinct. And he's a docile, mid-level, balanced fighter. And I just think Keith Thurman will whip him up. And I think it'll be a stoppage. I think they'll stop it on the behalf of Canelo. I think they'll stop it to where he don't get knocked out. But I can see like Keith Thurman kind of moving around him, and Canelo's a big target, man. Canelo's headed hair, bangs be flying back when he get hit. I can see actually that being one of his easiest fights. Because I'm not fooled by size. I know a lot of guys are big advocates of a guy being bigger than another guy, so that means he's going to win. But Keith Thurman is not that much smaller than Canelo. Canelo's not a big guy. He's just a blocky guy that likes to, come in at 154 and above. But I see Keith Thurman outspeeding him, pushing the tempo, and then whooping him up pretty good, redding his face up. Probably even wobbling him a couple of times. I've seen him wobbled by Cotto brother and Hatton brother. So those guys don't punch nowhere near as hard as Keith Thurman. So I just see him being stopped TKO-ish, just to save face.
All right. I wouldn't disagree, man, because like I said, I've never been impressed with Canelo yet. Canelo has not impressed me in a single fight yet. Even fights that he won, even with like when he fought Shane Mosley. He hit Shane Mosley so much and so often that the only thing that he could have did good in that fight was knock Shane Mosley out, which he didn't do, or put him on the deck. Because Shane Mosley literally was a fucking punching bag. His fight with Trout, I thought Trout won the fight despite the knockdown. Me and a bunch of guys, we got on Skype right after the fight, and everybody was in conclusion that we thought that Trout won the fight. The Angulo fight, I told you that the FBI was investigating that fight because they thought it was fixed. I thought the same thing, but maybe Angulo was just shot because he looked like shit in his last fight. The Laura fight, I thought that he could have did a little more, but I thought that he won the fight handedly, but it still didn't show me anything significant that I thought was, because he was in there with a guy who didn't want to engage. So that one was hard to judge, you know what I'm saying? But I mean, I just haven't seen a performance from Canelo that makes me think that he's a good fighter, like a fighter. Nothing. So, and then what's funny is people kept like that fight last September, like it was this big ass fight, and yeah, it made a bunch of money and broke pay-per-view records. But I remember doing a prediction video about that, and I said that that fight didn't even deserve a prediction because Canelo wasn't shit at the time. I mean, Canelo has to do a whole lot in order for me to think that he's a even close to an A-level fighter. He's a very weak B fighter to me now. You say C level, and I don't disagree with that. I can see him being a C. He's weak as fuck to me. But, you know, people have to boost him up, you know, to boost up their favorite fighter. You know? I mean, shit, man. He still got a lot of work to do at 54, man. A lot of work.
But, man, that's what I wanted to do, man. I wanted to get a breakdown on Keith Thurman, and anybody who disagree and they feel that they got a top-level fighter they want to present, well, I challenge you to present your fighter.
Yeah. And especially if they at 147 pounds, put pressure on your guy to get in the ring with our guy. Like, I don't want Keith Thurman to skip nobody. I want him to beat all of them. Paulie, fucking Zab Judah, throw them two in there. All the motherfuckers who come up from 40 and everybody at 47. I want him to fight them all. I ain't leaving nobody out. All right, man. I guess we'll conclude this one, man. We'll get up with these fools on the next one, man. It's your boy.
All right, what?
Zone 6 and your boy Rollo Jenkins. Holla at your boys.
Listen, I told you give them something visual, so you in the head and made your own YouTube-based TV show. It's an array of IPAs and fighters on the road. Got a question? Put them in your comment section right below. Barbershop talk while you're sitting in your living room. Pacquiao, Mayweather, and we can't forget the brews. Coming to you live with the scoops like a ladle. Allow me to introduce the boxing round table. Yeah.
Rollo Jenkins, boxologist, Zone 6. Dre, BT Pound.